Welcome to Ground Control and another episode of the Pilot's Lounge. So, first off, I want to thank you guys for using our affiliate links when you purchase something. The links are always in the show notes of the video. We get a small commission at no cost to you, which helps us buy more items. And I want to thank my patrons. That kind of support is very humbling, and I greatly appreciate that. I want to thank those who have subscribed to the channel, who provide feedback, constructive criticism, who are funny in their comments a lot of the times. I really appreciate that. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up on our posts. Thanks for following us on Facebook and liking us on Facebook and posting on our Facebook page. I try to post on the Facebook page on a regular basis. I post a lot of information on the Facebook page that I don't post on the YouTube channel. So if it's just a really short video, or if it's information that I need to put out that doesn't require a video, or if it's just a tip or something, So if you don't follow us on Facebook, at least check it out and see if there's information there that you'd be interested in, because I do post our aircraft plans on there. I post our OpenTX setup files for different planes, my OpenTX model files and my setup files for different planes, as well as our GFS planes. Anything that I modify, I'll put on there. Okay, so first I want to talk about projects that I've got ongoing, and if you guys remember, or if you've seen the F-86 Saberjet, very underpowered, a 64 millimeter EDF jet. It was very, very underpowered. So after cutting air inlets on it, it gave me a bit of a power increase. It seems the EDF unit was starved for air. And then I replaced the ESC with a 40 amp ESC. I put a 4S LiPo in it and limited the upper end of the throttle range to give it, I called it a 3S plus power system, because you had more than 3S power but less than full 4S power. Now, there were a couple people that commented on that, so I maybe I didn't explain it well enough, because they thought that perhaps that was really hard on the ESC. So I wanted to make sure that you understood how I set up the 3S plus power system. Okay, so I set it up with a 4S LiPo. The ESC was programmed for the full range of the throttle, the top of the range and the bottom of the range on the transmitter. Nothing was limited when I programmed that into the ESC. I limited the top end of the throttle range using the dual rate on the throttle channel, not in the ESC itself. So it shouldn't tax the ESC any harder doing that than if I hadn't limited the throttle range via dual rate. Because the vast majority of the time you're flying around between 60 to 80% throttle anyway, correct? So I limited the top end of the throttle range at 70%. So I could have a little, cushion on the ESC. And it's a little rocket with the 3S plus power system. So I will probably be using that method again in the future for other planes. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I explained that well enough so that you realize I didn't limit the ESC in any way. I limited the throttle range on the transmitter. Okay, the Eachine F-16 50 millimeter EDF kit. Now, if you're not aware, I got this kit and I put a pusher motor and prop on it. And oh my gosh, does it have power now. Now with this power system, motor, prop, ESC I've got on it, it's only flying on a 3S, but it has a little bit more than a 1.8 to 1 thrust to weight ratio, which means, unlimited vertical. Now, I crashed it. I posted the initial video of my flight with this, and it was pretty windy out. But you got to see a flight demonstration of it with this pusher motor and prop and the amount of power that it had. And it has tons of power just running on a 3S compared to the EDF version running on a 4S. It beats the 4S, and you get more than double the flight time. So I crashed it. I now have it put back together. It is not nearly as pretty as it was, but I think it's airworthy. So if the wind forecast holds out for this Sunday, I'll be taking it back out and putting it in the air again, and hopefully what will be calmer wind, and to give you a better flight demonstration of this plane with this power system. Now once I get this in the air again, if everything goes well, get it all tuned out, handling the way I want it, I've got another motor that I want to put on here, which is the Racer Star 2207. It's the SIC 2207, and it's a 2688 kV motor. And with the same prop, I'm going to put it on here if everything goes well, and that will give this jet a 2-to-1 thrust to weight ratio. But with this power system I have here right now, it's kind of right on the edge of that unlimited vertical climb, but the other motor at a 2-to-1 thrust to weight ratio will definitely put it over the top. It will definitely have an unlimited vertical climb, at least for as long as the battery holds out. So stay tuned for that. I have had so many reviews to do lately that I have once again had to push back the brushless conversion of the Volantex Sport Cub 500. I'm almost finished with it. I'm hoping I can get that finished up this week before other things start arriving, because I do have quite a bit in the pipe that's going to be here in the next week or two. So I'm going to try and get that finished up this week so I can finally get that conversion completed and get it in the air. I did recently publish the plans for the Glue and Fly Series F-22 Mini version 3 and performed a little flight demonstration to reintroduce you to that park jet. I think this is the first time that I have published the plans anywhere besides on Patreon. So I think this is the first time the plans are available. So my setup file is in there, all the associated documentation is in there. Right now I just have the full sheet, the full size sheet plans that you can have printed, or if you have a method of tiling that full sheet plans, they're there and available for you to download. I will try this week or next weekend to get tiled plans created for that park jet, so that those will also be available. I'll post that on Facebook when they're available and provide a link where you can download it. I'll just update the zip file that I already have there, and I will add the tiled plans to it, so you can print the tiles on a standard printer and assemble them and cut out your templates for your parts for that park jet. But it's an absolute awesome flying park jet, and I think I've got somewhere between 250, maybe a little over 250 flights on that park jet now, and it has been abused. You know, for just a Adams rating board park jet, it's held up pretty well. I had a couple of people ask me about what kind of landing skids I was using on this Eachine F-16. So the material that I use is 3/4 inch PVC pipe. It's the Schedule 40 PVC pipe. But this is the second aircraft I've used those on. And, you know, it's dirt cheap. I had like a 4-foot section of that PVC pipe sitting out in the garage. I mean, who doesn't have to work with PVC pipe from time to time, right? So, and I've got one of those little ratchet type PVC cutters. So the back ones on this plane, I cut 10mm wide section of the PVC pipe, and then I cut it in half. And then because you've got these plastic fins that are angled, what I did was I took my Dremel tool on each one of these and I cut a little notch in it, I don't know, about 5mm back on each side, and then angled it from the top to try and match the angle of these sections of PVC pipe with the angle on these plastic landing fins, so that the landing surface of the PVC pipe would be level with the ground. I wanted as much surface contact as possible because, you know, that distributes the weight better and it slides better across the ground. I used super glue to hold it in place, and then I just covered it up with hot glue, and that's held it on there very well. On the front, I cut a 5mm wide section and cut it in half and used half of that circle to make the front landing skid. Now, I always put these on my plane so that the tail is a little bit lower than the nose, like is normal on a plane. So, you know, because when you come in, you flare. I wanted the back skids to touch down, you know, before the front skids, and I wanted the nose up off the ground a little bit so it still has that lift, you know, coming in. But you know, they're very thick-walled sections of PVC pipe, so I think these are going to be some of the most robust landing skids that I've had on a plane so far. So I think I'm going to continue to use these sections of PVC pipe to make these landing skids. So if you're landing on a hard surface like concrete or asphalt, and I think that these would even work really well in grass too, because, you know, without any type of landing skid system, when you're landing on grass, you come in, you're floating down, as soon as you touch the grass, it kind of sticks to it like tape, you know? So I think those landing skids would really help planes like this slide across the grass as well. Probably be a little less wear and tear on the airframe. So anyway, that's what I use for my landing skids on my planes on the hard pack where I have to land, and so far it's worked out really well. All right, so the aircraft that I've been working on, the Horizon Hobby Conscendo Evolution, I completed the review of that. I did tests on it on 3S LiPo and 4S LiPo. Before I flew it with a 4S LiPo, I did put a metal alloy spinner and prop assembly on it, because, you know, the stock is plastic except for the metal pins that the prop blades attached to. I didn't want to take a chance on that coming apart in the air, so I waited until I received that metal alloy spinner and prop assembly before I put a 4S in it, and that's the way I want to fly that sport glider from now on. It is an absolute rocket ship on a 4S LiPo. That is an awesome plane, and I think it's an exceptional value for the price. And I got it as a bind and fly. You know, it's a little bit less expensive for the plug and fly, but I got the bind and fly version of it. So I am completely happy with that plane. It is an awesome sport glider. The Eachine and Atom RC Seal Wing G1500, I completed the review on it and tested it in the 1.5 meter and 1.1 meter configuration. I didn't change anything on my setup for the 1.1 meter configuration. I was afraid that after I got it in the air, I might have to either dial down my aileron movement or increase the expo, but it felt really good. It did have a much better roll rate in the 1.1 meter configuration than it did in the 1.5 meter configuration. The roll rate on the 1.5 meter configuration is still very respectable. So it was a little more aerobatic with the 1.1 meter than the 1.5 meter. Of course, it still felt like it had really light wing loading, even in the 1.1 meter configuration. It just seems to float. But tons of power on that plane in either configuration, and I haven't decided yet, you know, which direction I want to go with it. Do I want to fly it more in the 1.1 or 1.5 meter configuration? I'll have to put a couple more flight sessions on it in the 1.1 meter configuration, and then see which way I'm going to keep it, you know, between those two. The Eachine F-16 50mm EDF jet review, tested on 3S, and then it has adequate power, but I wanted more power in it, so I replaced the 30 amp speed controller with a 40 amp speed controller, put a 4S LiPo in it. Much more power on a 4S setup, and that's the way I would like to fly it from now on, is on a 4S LiPo. and it has very good vertical, much better vertical on the 4S than it does on the 3S. Unfortunately, all I had were some 1050 milliamp hour 4S LiPo, so I didn't get much flight time out of it at all. I do have 4 Turnigy Nanotech 4S 1300 milliamp hour 70C LiPos on the way. I just ordered those yesterday, so as soon as those come in, I want to test those in the EDF version of this jet. And they're going to be a little bit heavier, you know, than those 1050s, but I want to take it out and test it with that, see what the power is like with the heavier battery, and then also see what the flight time is like. But those are on the way. And then the kit with the pusher configuration that I've already discussed. So there's just no comparison. You know, the 50 millimeter EDF version of this jet was only the second EDF jet I've ever flown. But there's no comparison in power and flight time between an EDF and a pusher motor and prop. The pusher motor and prop are always going to produce a lot more power and give you at least double, if not more than double, the flight time you're going to get with an EDF. Now, I really do miss that jet sound from that EDF, and I'm sure the EDF units are going to get better and better and better over time. But I'll have to see which one I prefer, but I'm just about betting I'm going to prefer to fly this kit with the pusher motor and prop over the EDF unit, just because of the simple fact that with the pusher motor and prop, it's going to have unlimited vertical, and I'm going to get tons of flight time out of it as well. So tons of power, tons of flight time. It's kind of hard to beat that combination. So I'm real happy with this. Hopefully I won't crash it again. Okay, so now let's talk about what's in the pipe. I posted on Facebook, it was probably a month ago, that I posted that I was going to be receiving the XK P40 Warhawk, ready to fly. You know, it's one of those micro warbirds. But, you know, now I have no idea when it's going to ship. I think the original ship date was like September 30th, and then it was pushed back to 2 or 3 days in October, and now it's pushed all the way back to November. So I have no idea when I'm going to receive that, if I'll even receive it before the first of the year. So I've just kind of, you know, lost hope with that plane. But what I did yesterday, since it looks like I'm not going to get the P40 Warhawk anytime soon, is I pulled the trigger on the Arrows Viper 50 millimeter EDF jet plug and fly version. I've been looking at that for a long time, but I just never pulled the trigger on it because I had a lot of things that were inbound and I had a lot on my plate, and I was afraid, you know, it was just going to be too much, you know, for me to do. So now I went ahead and pulled the trigger on that Viper 50 millimeter EDF jet. And on top of that, I also pre-ordered the Arrows T-33 Shooting Star 50 millimeter EDF jet plug and fly. I don't know when it will ship. The information that they had, I ordered it from Hobby Zone. If you've never been to the Hobby Zone site, check it out because they got some pretty good prices on their planes and stuff. And I think they're the exclusive distributor in the United States for the Arrows RC planes. And so they have quite a few of the 50 millimeter EDF jets, and I like the 50 millimeter EDF jet size, the 50 and the 64 millimeter both. I like that size of plane. So whenever that ships, you know, the Viper I should have in my hand within the next couple of weeks. Hopefully within a couple of weeks after that I will have the T-33 Shooting Star in my hand. So that's 2 planes. I still have the Volantex Phoenix S 1.6 meter sport glider that I have not had a chance to assemble and put the electronics in yet. So I'm hoping it's probably going to be another week. It's probably going to be another week before I will have a chance to put that together. The first thing I want to do this week is trying to get that conversion done on the Sport Cup 500, and then when that's done, then I'm going to start putting together the Phoenix S sport glider. And I just received in the mail yesterday, I think it was, a new RF module for the WFLY ET16 transmitter. So it'll use a standard JR bay. It's for long range, and I believe it uses crossfire. And this will also work in like the RadioMaster TX16S, some other, anything that uses a JR bay, this should work in. So it's supposed to be very low latency, long range receiver with 4 or 5 different power settings depending on what the laws are in your area. I think it goes up to 100 milliwatt. It's rated for over 3 kilometers in range, so it's designed for long range FPV. They also sent with it a pro version of their long range receiver, and then the mini version of their long range receiver. Now, it did not come with any pigtails for these receivers, so you do have to solder your pigtails on. There is a PDF manual that shows you what all the pads are for. You know, your signal for crossfire, your S-bus, your telemetry, your voltage, and your ground. And those are all labeled on the board as well, I believe. But there's a manual that shows you exactly what they are. So I'm hoping in the next week or two I will be able to test those out in the WFLY ET16 transmitter, and then also in the RadioMaster TX16S transmitter using the same RF module. So look for that. And I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to cover. This was a longer episode than I had planned on, but anyway, it was a lot of ground to cover, so I thought it was time for another Pilot's Lounge episode. Don't forget, check out the Facebook page. I put a lot of information up there, so I'll probably upload the PDF manual for these items and post those on our Facebook page for download as well. Let me think, am I forgetting anything? I don't know. If I forget anything, I'll put it in the next episode of the Pilot's Lounge, but I'm hoping to have this one in the air tomorrow. So hopefully calmer winds will prevail tomorrow. At least the forecast is for 2 to 3 mile an hour wind. Now, I never believe that, but if it's 4 to 6, that won't be too bad. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting a better flight video of this plane if everything works out as planned. So
thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the air.